Thank you for tuning in to CATV 8 in White River Junction. My name is Cody Morrison. I'm a recent graduate of Franklin Pierce University and a former Grafton County resident, having grown up in Monroe, right up the road. We're joined here by District 1 Executive Councilor Joseph Kenney. How are you this morning, Councilor Kenney?
Morning, Cody. Monroe is way up north. We're kind of way down south in Grafton County, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. And your position as an executive council, you've held many hats within state and local government, having been a town selectman, a state representative, and a state senator. Now, for our Vermont viewers, I know we have a lot across the river here. Can you just explain what your current position with the executive council is and why it's important?
Well, Cody, it's really it's a big district. It's about 108 towns and 4 cities. All this yellow here is my district. Okay. And for our Vermont residents and for our New Hampshire residents who might not be aware, the Governing Council basically is kind of like a board of directors. There's 5 of us, and we have 5 districts, and obviously I have the largest district. And so basically, we co-administrate the state of New Hampshire with the governor of New Hampshire, and we vote on state contracts, multi-million-dollar contracts, could be health and human services, could be environmental services, could be health and human services, Department of Transportation. So basically, that's the primary job, and then we kind of look at all the state boards and appointments. We vote on those. We vote on judicial appointments, and we do a lot of other ancillary things such as civil commissions and kind of looking. We preside over bond hearings for the higher education and health authority, and so it's and of course we have a very strong outreach programs within our own district. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But with the Governing Council, they always say the governor always knows she's got to be able to count to 3, because if she doesn't count to 3, she doesn't get anything passed through the Governing Council. Now, there's only 2 other states that have a Governing Council. That's Minnesota and that's Massachusetts, and it's very limited in focus. It's just judicial appointments in those states. So as we kiddingly say, we have the most powerful executive council in the country, but it serves a great purpose. It's been around since 1680 when we reported to the King of England way back then, and so it's one of those great positions that still is a holdover probably from the Revolutionary War time period, and people like it because it adds another level of transparency to state government.
So it sounds like you could refer to the executive council as a governance council or a board of directors. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah, it's kind of like a board of directors where we kind of huddle with the governor every 2 weeks, and again we vote on all these types of contracts, and we vote on boards and commissions and judicial appointments. But it's really an opportunity for us to advise the governor on very important issues in the state. Could be the economy, it could be a pressing issue in health and human services, it might be a commissioner issue that we have to address. So there's a lot of facets to the job.
Now, when you're examining one of these contracts to possibly vote on it, what do you look for, and how big are these contracts usually, and what kind of...
Well, the contracts can really range pretty much $25,000 up to a multi-million-dollar contract. I voted earlier this year on a close to $1 billion contract through Health and Human Services with the Medicaid expansion program. So it's quite a lot of contracts and money associated with it. And I typically look at is it a vendor that's reliable, someone we can count on to fulfill the contract? Is it something that's going to support the taxpayers' needs? And is it something that we've seen before, so we have a certain comfort level with dealing with that company? So there's generally looking at really the quality side of the contract and also looking at the execution side of it as well.
Now, do these contracts cover just funds that come out of the state budget, or do they cover federal as well?
Well, generally, that's a very good question. Anything that comes in through the federal level that's a substantial sum has to get approval through the Governing Council. So a lot of our contracts that come in are federally funded. But anything that's driven by the state budget with state revenues, obviously that comes before us. But the threshold is about $25,000 for us to review. If it's under that, usually the commissioners can go ahead and authorize the expenditure.
Okay. Now, switching gears here, as you showed us in the map earlier, you by far have the largest district in the state. What are some of the big issues within District 1? I know every town has their own set of issues and concerns. How are you able to essentially bridge that gap, that communication gap?
Well, there's probably about 20 to 25 newspapers within District 1, so it's always difficult to communicate. So I kind of, pick a region of the state that I'm in, and that a particular topic or issue is being addressed, and work with that local media outlet. It could be like today we're on public access TV. We might use a weekly newspaper, get on the radio. If it's a statewide issue, we might try to get on a statewide television program, or a say the union leader, to try to express that particular topic. But generally, it's it's just working with kind of the local media, trying to explain to people what that issue is that might impact the area. Now, the big issue in the state of New Hampshire these days is the opioid crisis. So right now, that's surpassed the economy and jobs. The number one issue in New Hampshire is taking on the drug issue. We've lost over close to 600 people in less than a 2-year period to overdose and heroin, with drug overdose. And so the state of New Hampshire, more recently, through the actions of the governor and council, calling for a special session with the governor. The legislature met a few weeks ago, and they put together a 20-member task force to address certain aspects and angle to the problems that they can potentially come up with legislation here at the end of January, so that they can execute things like how do you treat fentanyl when it comes to the penalty of the use of fentanyl, which is just as bad as heroin itself. Looking at overprescribing drugs through the medical community, looking at that aspect, looking at the law enforcement, looking at outreach and education, and just looking at treatment centers. How can we develop better access to treatment centers? So the legislature is taking on a lot of different topics with the drug issue. Now, other issues in my district really include the balsams, which is it's a huge project up north in Dixville Notch that has the potential of creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs in the near term, and trying to work with that developer to try to get the necessary permitting through the Department of Environmental Services and some of the other state agencies. And more locally, we're looking at the Sunapee Mountain expansion and seeing where they're at right now, and trying to go through that permitting process through the Department of Resource and Economic Development. But in this area, there's a lot of great issues, and such as, we've had probably 24 contracts that have impacted Lebanon, Hanover area, through the college technical system, through the hospital, and Dartmouth College itself, and with the city of Lebanon, the airports, the road system. There's just been a lot of contracts on the table this past year. So, that's a lot just in a short period of time. So.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the contracts that the council voted on earlier this year awarded $500,000 of federal money towards River Valley Community College, or the community college system in New Hampshire, to reinvest and to restructure that program in Lebanon. How do you see that impacting the local area?
Well, as you know, the Lebanon College shut down earlier this year, and so that was pretty much taken over by the River Valley Community College. And so subsequently, they've received some federal money through the Custer office recently. And so the state has a program called the Community Development Block Grant. And so they were able to, the city of Lebanon, get $500,000 towards the renovation of the old Lebanon College site. So that's outstanding. I think that's good news for the city of Lebanon, and it's going to provide a lot more kind of educational opportunities for local students, and for kind of adult learners as well. So I think it's great news for the area.
Oh, it's wonderful news. Now, Councilor Burton, who held your seat before you, had a strong outreach program. You have to, if you're able to stay up on the issues, over 108 towns and 4 cities. How has your style of constituent service built upon the Burton style?
Well, you can't replace Ray Burton. He's kind of a one-man legend, if you will. But what I've tried to do is really follow his roadmap, which is to do the job full-time, create kind of a strong constituent service, and to really be out in the field Monday through Friday and sometimes on weekends to go to events, go to meetings, go to constituents who have specific issues, go to the city halls, go to the town halls and talk to local leaders, governmental leaders, civic leaders, and talk about some of the issues that state government can help out with. So more recently we had a 10-year highway plan kind of hearing at the City of Lebanon, and a lot of the council members brought forth some really good suggestions on, for instance, Mechanic Road, Route 4, to put that back into the 10-year highway plan, which the council has done just recently. So that's a good news story. But really kind of creating, learning the area, knowing, listening to leaders, getting to know them, developing a rapport, and that's really been kind of the continuance of the Burton legacy and tradition. Is how do you get to over 270,000 people to address their concerns and also be responsive. And the best thing to do is just simply put a lot of miles on your car, spend a lot of evenings out just talking to people. And today, for instance, we'll be at a little drug conference here at Hanover, talking about the opioid crisis, and then we'll stop in and see the local chamber executive director, Paul Boucher, and we'll talk to a couple of the local residents who just wanted to meet the executive councilor just to let them know who they are and what concerns they might have.
Now, one big program that Councilor Burton had was his internship program throughout the state of New Hampshire. How can the Executive Council help college students in District 1?
Well, I think the internship program, which you're the first, Cody, actually, to try to reestablish that. And yesterday we had a meeting with the Plymouth State University president, Donald Burks, to really to reestablish the internship program. But that's a really great entryway for a college student to learn about state government, and also to learn about opportunities that they might have interest in within state government or within the private sector. And so it's an opportunity also for them to develop, as I say, they create their Rolodex to start their professional networking. So I think the internship program needs to stay, and we just have to kind of tweak it a little bit to make sure it's sustainable into the future.
That's great to hear. And regarding going back to some of the main responsibilities of the governor and council, you mentioned appointments and civil commissions. Mm-hmm. There was recently a judicial nominee who was turned down for appointment. What is your thought process, and what is your criteria for appointing someone to a high level of office within the state?
Yeah, on the judicial side, it's interesting. I kind of look at the level of appointment, like for instance, if they're going to the circuit court or the Superior Court or to the state Supreme Court. So the first thing I'm looking at is their level of experience in the legal system itself, to see if their experiences kind of match up with that particular appointment level within the judiciary. Secondly, I look at, are they connected to New Hampshire? Are they involved in their community? Are they somehow, a good kind of civic leader in their own right? And then I look at what do their peers think of them as far as the legal community. And then there is looking at their background, if they happen to have been a judge before, if they've been in the legal community, how have they conducted themselves, and what is their kind of viewpoint. And lastly, I look at kind of the constitutional aspect of their philosophy on how they look at the Constitution and how they will apply it. And lastly, I would say is when someone comes before the court, when they're representing them per se, how do they kind of treat that individual in kind of a setting, court setting, because it can be nerve-wracking for a citizen coming before the court system for the first time, and so it's what's their manners going to be in that setting, because ultimately they're there to get justice and to do it the right way and have mutual respect.
Now, my next question ties into the criminal justice aspect, along with going back to the opioid epidemic. The council just voted on just accepted the resignation of the Department of Health and Human Services Commissioner Nick Toumpas. He'll be stepping down in January. What skills do you think that the next commissioner will have to have in order to combat this epidemic?
Well, the Health and Human Services Commissioner is the most important commissioner position in state government. Now, there's some other commissioners who might argue that, maybe safety, maybe DOT, but by far it's the largest budget. It's got the most state employees that they oversee, and they deal with the most complex issues. And I always say to the governor, I said, the toughest job in state government, governor, is really not the governor, but the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, because they make decisions that are where a few hours they have to turn around and come up with answers to very complicated questions. So they're on call really 24/7. So with that, I'm going to look for someone who has the experience in healthcare, someone who's a good manager, and more importantly, someone who's a good leader. Because in that particular agency, you have to have strong leadership, because you have so many directors of various components of health and human services. So you're going to have to be a strong leader from the top down. And I think that that's someone that I'll be looking for is obviously, if they've got a strong interest in the drug crisis, that's going to be a major asset. So we'll be looking at that. But it's a tough position to fill. And the last go around with the Department of Transportation Commissioner, it took us 10 months to fill that position. So hopefully the governor, as I understand, has been looking at this many months ago. So hopefully she's got a running start here, but he's going to step down in January. So we've got to get someone in there fairly quick.
And the next commissioner will certainly have big shoes to fill, as Commissioner Toumpas is very well liked within the department and within state government. Now, switching gears here, we've had a lot of presidential candidates come into the state. What is your what is your view of the primary, and how do you think it's helped bring attention to New Hampshire?
Well, I think the New Hampshire primary, which has been around for 100 years or so, but is really an opportunity for us to really ask the tough questions of these people who want to be president within the Republican or the Democratic Party. It's a great opportunity for them to engage in retail politics, and it's unlike any other state in the country where they'll go out and meet with 5 or 10 people just to get an understanding of what their concerns are, or they could be in front of hundreds of people here in New Hampshire. But it allows us to kind of dress them down, figure out who they are, figure out their backgrounds, their families, their issues that they represent, and we basically kind of sharpen them up so when they are ready for national primetime audience, that they can articulate themselves, they can know what some of the issues are, and they can know that New Hampshire people have asked some really smart questions that are only going to make them a better candidate as they move forward.
Well, that's great to hear, and it's good to see that the state and the region has had a lot of attention and a lot of national press. Now, it's no secret that the economy up here is driven by roads and tourism, and we've already spoke about DOT contracts. Now, what are some of the big attractions, and what are some of the big projects that are being undertaken in the Lebanon area? I know winter's coming up, and the ski areas will certainly be getting some use.
Well, the ski industry is a very powerful industry in New Hampshire. As I was traveling past Whaleback here this morning, I noticed it was all barren, no snow, and so it reminds me of a lot of the ski areas here in the next week or two are wanting to see snow on their ski slopes. So this winter I will be traveling to 20 plus ski areas in my district. I'm actually going to try to get back into shape and start skiing all of them, get a chance to meet the owners, get a chance to understand how their ski areas are run and kind of what kind of model do they fit. Is it a family model? Is it kind of, you know, for a college ski team? Is it for high school ski teams? Or is it really kind of a robust resort area? So I'm really excited to learn about that important industry in our state, along with the snowmobile industry, which a couple of weeks ago up in Bartlett, I attended New Hampshire Snowmobile Association annual meeting, and they're getting revved up for their snowmobile season. They've gotten their grant and aid funding, so they'll be able to trim or groom their trails here this winter, which they're excited about. But you know, obviously the winter time is really a different type of industry when it comes to travel and tourism. With the road issues, Lebanon, we're always looking at you know infrastructure, bridges, exits. And we're looking at, in some extent, to the airport, which is one of the bigger municipal airports in the state. Obviously the Mechanic Road is a very important project that, that 2-mile stretch that we hope to, in the coming years, get that, redeveloped and resurfaced. So, but because it's a very critical tie-in to the area of Lebanon. Also, in supporting the university system, Dartmouth College, those are, there's a lot of wonderful things going on. We have an incubator at Dartmouth College in Hanover, and just earlier this year we had given money towards the Grafton County Economic Development Council so that they could develop one of their companies at the incubator. So there's all these little pockets of economic activity that's going on within this area. And so we just had a Guile Hill public housing project that we passed a kind of I guess it was a community finance a grant that will build out that facility. So between public housing, education, economic development, road systems, there's a lot of vitality going on in this district. So, and state government is very connected to it.
Now, what is the last message that you want to leave viewers here? If they have any questions for you, what is your lasting impression for them?
Well, that my office, and it's actually your office, is very accessible to you. You can call me at any time at 581-8780. Obviously New Hampshire at 603, and you can email me at joseph.kenney, Kenney, @nh.gov. My approach is a two-way street. Anytime you have a concern that I can help you out with, I'll be more than glad to do that. If I don't have the answer, I'll find someone who does have the answer for you. A lot of the issues that I hear today, quite honestly, have to deal with, Medicaid, Medicare issues. Sometimes it's a license plate issue. A lot of times it's a road issue. In some cases it might be an economic development issue with an environmental permit, or it might be something to do with something within the travel and tourism industry. But I'm always there and available to the public. It's such a privilege and honor to serve you, the 108 towns and 4 cities. There isn't a day that goes by but I'm always thankful for what I do, and that you, the citizens, challenge me the most to become a better representative through the tough questions that you ask me. We might not always be on the same page on some issues, but let you know at the end of the day that I'm fighting for you and trying to do the best I can. So again, Cody, I would just say, for the citizens to reach out at any time, and I look forward to any future calls and projects in the area. I look forward to working on them. I know I work very closely with the town manager of Hanover. and also Ms. Griffin, and also Mayor Tuttle here in the city of Lebanon with her council. So it's great to get to know these people and get to know the issues, whether it's a wastewater issue or whether it's simply having to deal with the municipal marijuana issue that has recently has reached here in Lebanon, trying to put together a dispensary, or whether it's just talking about some other issue, road, economic development, whatever it might be. So I'm here really to to continue a dialogue with local officials and the citizens on some of the issues that we can help solve together.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, thank you for tuning in today, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Councilor Kenney.
Thank you.
And have a good rest of your day, everyone.